in getting this place and setting this place up. I know that you and the people that did this was amazing. If we could give Pete, Rosalie, and the people that helped him, can we give them another round of applause? We really appreciate that. Thank you. It's amazing. So yes, I'm CJ Wallace, John Birch Society Field Coordinator for Arizona and New Mexico. Okay. Oh, okay, like this? Oh, is that good?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's different because I was accused of being loud. I'm usually accused of being loud, almost never that I have to speak up, so that's great, okay? Well, we're gonna go ahead and talk about states' rights today. How many of you know what America is? Is America a democracy? Then why do the news anchor men and women, why do they, professional athletes, why does almost everybody say that America is a democracy? There you go. And that's why you're here. This is very important that you're here to educate others in what America really is. Because if you don't have or don't know your identity as a country, you too would believe that America is a democracy when it's not. What is America? It's a constitutional republic, and as Benjamin Franklin said, if you can keep it, how many plan on keeping it that way? Absolutely. So in history, we have representatives, legislators, judges, sheriffs that have stated that they're going to uphold and defend the US Constitution. Have you heard that? But when it comes to actually doing it, their voting record says otherwise. How many of you know that sometimes the reason why it's like that is because it's on purpose, it's by design, and others, it's because they're ignorant. Now, ignorant is not a vulgar word, it just means you don't know, okay? And so what I'd like to do is let you know that what's going on right now is not something that is new to America. As a matter of fact, most of the federal government's increasingly reckless spending, how many of you know that it's unconstitutional? But is anything done to rein that in? Is anything done to reverse that race towards fiscal elimination? You know, if we enforced the sacred text of the US Constitution, did you know that the federal government would be 20% its size and 20% its cost? So why isn't it? Not enough voices are being raised. That's why. Throughout history, instances of government overreach have tried to challenge the integrity of the US Constitution. Now here's an example. Back in 1944, World War II. Shout out to all of our veterans. Thank you so much for your service. The Roosevelt administration claimed that a cessation of Montgomery Ward, the company Montgomery Ward's work, would impede the war effort, even though the company wasn't involved in any war-related activities. They were having a strike at the time. When company officials resisted pressure to submit to demands by the potential strikers, the administration, the federal government, sent the US Army to seize control of the company. So the company's chairman, Sewell Avery, was actually picked up from his desk and sat on the sidewalk outside of his company. And wouldn't you know that the Attorney General at the time, Francis Biddle, said, well, we are completely justified in that action because he said that the government can act unless expressly prohibited by the Constitution. and that's why we acted that way. He said we weren't expressly forbidden by the Constitution. How many of you think that was a constitutional act that was allowed to happen? Not at all. Not at all. The expansion of federal power exemplified by the creation of institutions like the Federal Reserve raises fundamental questions about constitutional interpretation. The Federal Reserve Chairman, Alan Greenspan, sent a letter to then Congressman James Greenwood at Pennsylvania. This was in 1993. The federal chairman sought to help the congressman address a constituent's inquiry about the source of Federal Reserve power. In the key portion of his one-page letter, Greenspan first correctly acknowledged that the states are barred from several monetary initiatives by the Constitution. Now, if you want to look that up, it's Article 1, Section 9. But he then stated that the federal government is not limited in what it may designate as legal tender. But what makes America exceptional than any other government on the planet Earth? It's not what the government does, it's what the government is prevented from doing. That's what makes it great. That's what makes it exceptional. And today, I want to show you how to make America great again by making America states again. Because one of the main purposes of the Constitution is to limit the power of the government, this goal has been severely eroded, and the globalists and the insiders know that. How many of you know it's more than Biden that we are fighting against? It's not about Biden and Trump. We know that Biden is not in control. So who is? Who is? Yes, and that's just one of many, right? Someone said George Soros. Let's recognize right now the weapons of constitutional defense from, and he's called the father of the Constitution. How many of you know who that is? James Madison, that's right. Madison addressed himself to those adversaries of the Constitution that an uncontrolled federal authority eventually would swallow up state governments and assume all state prerogatives. And today we have puppets, we have tools of the deep state within our state governments. Now, how do we know that? Because of their low constitutional voting record. You gotta watch out for the low constitutional voting records. You see, they might not take the Constitution seriously, but I'm looking at a bunch of people who are taking the Constitution seriously. Madison described a symbiotic relationship between the state and federal governments. Who created who? Who created who? Just a pop quiz. The states created the federal government. Did you know that? And just like when a child runs the household, what does that look like? When the creation runs the world, what does that look like? It looks like tyranny, doesn't it? And that's exactly what's going on right now. It's because the states don't understand. Some of the state legislators do not understand the power that they wield, that they can actually say no and not be a puppet of the federal government. They don't have to always say yes to whatever the federal government dishes out. They can say, no, we're not going to do that. Why? Because that's not constitutional. No, we're not going to allow that because this is my state and that's not constitutional. We can always bring it back to that authority. So let's go ahead and get into the strategies and tactics Madison suggests that states should pursue if they find general government encroaching. Do we have any encroaching today? Do we have any federal overreach today? See, James Madison didn't think this would happen. He was an optimist. He said, I know that this won't happen in Federalist number 46, but just in case it does, thank God that he continued that sentence. He said, should an unwarrantable measure of the federal government be unpopular in particular states, Madison instructs there would be several powerful weapons in the arsenals of the states, each of which is able to destroy federal despotism and to protect the arrangement of authority created by what? The Constitution. Number one, the people's unease. The uneasiness that you feel, the anxiety that you know is present within your home, within you, within your workplace, that can be a catalyst to get the traitors out of our government. The widespread uneasiness and anxiety that you feel can be transmutated or turned into action so that you would not only gather together and talk about the problems, but that you would talk about the solutions to the problems, contacting the state legislators, giving them their scorecard, which we're going to give today. Number two, public resentment against overreach. How many resent the overreach that the federal government has done? Do you resent it? That's right. That's right. You know why? Because you're an American. That's why. People's strong resistance and unwillingness to comply can effectively challenge and oppose federal overreach. Do you remember what happened during COVID-19? Yes, it happened, right? We can talk about it. It happened, but then all of a sudden it poof. Why? Because the people knew it was, as they see in Britain, bollocks. It was poppycock. It didn't have a foundation. The foundation was a lie. Now, was the sickness real? My friends and family, absolutely, yes. But the subject is not that. The subject is, what about our freedoms? Because how many of you know that if you're a tyrant, if you're an abuser, you can take advantage of a crisis and turn it into your favor? Is that right? And that's what's happening right now. But public resentment against overreach is another tool. Number three, active non-cooperation. What does that mean? Stop cooperating with terrorists. Did you know we have domestic terrorists in our government? Yes, we do. Every time they vote against the Constitution, every time they smile in your face and say, I'm for the Constitution, constitutional rights and freedoms. Did you know, who gives us our rights, by the way? Okay, right, not our government. In the UN resolution, it states that the government, in so many words, gives them rights, gives the people rights, but that's not true for the US. We understand that our rights come from the Creator. And since the government didn't give them, the government cannot take them away. Stop cooperating with people who don't like you. Number four, and this is a big one. Governors can stand up to federal power. What is that called? That's called nullification. It's called saying no. When I was in school, they had a program called DARE. And it was real big. Nancy Reagan would say it all the time. She said, just say no to drugs, right? Well, the governors, the sheriffs, the state legislators need to start saying no to federal tyranny. They need to start saying no to the federal edicts. They need to start saying no because that is in their power. It was the states that created the federal government and not the other way around. Man, wouldn't you just love a governor that stood up to federal power? Don't we need governors to stand up to federal power? Don't we need more sheriffs to stand up against gun control laws that are not bound by the Constitution? Don't we? And we do have some. Thank God for them. They did say no, but we need more. We need more judges who are black letter judges, meaning if this is what the law says, then this is what the law says. I'm not trying to prove a point or be against America. It's the law. And that's why I'm judging this way. Not because I was blackmailed, not because I was pressured from above, but because I'm an American. Number five, State legislative strategies. State legislators. Oh man, how many legislators are in the place right now? State legislators, all right, thank God. State legislators have the power to use creative legislative tactics to frustrate and impede the federal government's unconstitutional actions. Did you know you have that power? You do. You swore an oath, didn't you? To uphold and defend the Constitution. And boy, do we appreciate it. Number 6, forming a united front. The collective opposition of state governments and their people can pose a formidable barrier to federal encroachment. And as Donald Trump says, it would be too big to rig if all of us formed a united front. Number 7, strategic resistance plans. States, and I'm talking about multiple states, can develop coordinated strategies to resist federal overstepping, reinforcing their constitutional rights and autonomy. Not too long ago, there was actually some states that banded together over the border issue. We need to do that over the federal tyranny issue. We need to start banding together with Arizona. We need to start banding together with Wyoming. Start banding together with Montana and all these states that are free states. They believe in the Constitution. Number 8, unified. And there's a common theme here, action across the states, as we spoke of. But Madison did not stop there. He kept going. And he said, widespread alerts is going to be very, very important. When you see something that oversteps the bounds, right? That federal tyranny is coming in, that federal overreach, you can't be afraid to call it what it is and then call your neighbor. Look behind you and say, hey, did you know that this was going on? This is what we're going to do next. We've got to contact their office. We've got to blow up their email. We've got to blow up their phone. Because at the end of the day, what do they do many times after events? And I'm talking about, any government official. They say, rah, rah, sis, kumbah, we're on your side. And then they go back to the office on the hill. And then they go back to their houses. And they take orders from Soros or whoever. But we've got to say enough is enough. Widespread alerts for federal overreach. Number 2, again, united front among states. Other states would hear this alarm, okay, and unite collectively against federal overreach. Why? Well, because it's like if you're in school and the bully is picking on you, but if you got a big brother, okay, if you have a big sister, if you got a cousin, then they're going to go ahead and say, hey, wait a minute. If you're going to fight him, you got to fight me too. Because we are in a war for our lives. Joe Biden said it. He said this is a battle for the soul of the nation. But if we're going to win this battle, then we have to talk directly to the powers that shouldn't be. And we can't be afraid to mention their scorecard and say, hey, that's a problem. Building the lines of communication. States, again, would start communicating with each other, building a network to share information and strategies. And I've got good news. That's going on right now. You're not going to hear it in the news because the governors are saying there's something taking place and we are not going down. In all of this, we see a common theme, and that is being united. We can fight against federal tyranny. I'd like to go ahead and share with you, if I may, and my time's almost up. Thank you so much, Pete. I want to share with you a scorecard that I ran across, okay? And this is Jennifer Jones, House of Representatives. Somebody clap for that. We respect the office. Thank God. Thank God for the office. Awesome, right? Now, when I was in school, a 17% was an F. But why did she get a 17% on her constitutional voting record? Why? Is it her fault? I say that it's our fault. Who told her? I'm sure she's been reaching out, right? Let's look at it. Free school meals. A good vote would have been no. This individual said yes. Now, why is free school meals something that she should have voted no on? Why? Are you against feeding children? Listen, I have children. I'm not against feeding children, but I am against federal control. And I know many times when we have those federal programs and we say yes, guess what comes with it? Strings. So we need to be wise enough to say no, because we know where the money's coming from. It's not the role of the government to feed or educate children. Rather, each of these responsibilities belongs to who?
The child's parents.
What a concept. It's not your children. It's our children. They didn't come from you. They came from us. Permanent residence for illegal aliens under 21. A good vote for that would have been no. This individual said yes. Persons who enter the United States illegally, which by definition is a crime. Did you know that? Should not be permitted sanctuary in New Mexico, let alone be regarded as eligible for lawful permanent residence. According to best interests of the child legislation modeled after the United Nations Convention. I told you it's deeper than Joe Biden. I told you it's deeper. We're not pointing fingers at anybody. This is not a judgment. We're looking and we're really seeing where this is coming from. And we aim at the target. We aim at the root of the problem. Let's educate. Rather than pursue a blatantly unconstitutional and anti-American policy that erodes both the rule of law and the value of citizenship, state lawmakers should use their powers reserved under the U.S. Constitution's what amendment? The 10th Amendment. Very powerful. To end the crisis of illegal immigration and provide for the public safety. Universal background checks for firearms. How many of you love universal checks for firearms? How many of you think that's constitutional? Is that okay? No. This bill, what does it do? It effectively requires a background check for every firearm purchase or transfer. Where are the guns at? All right. Without any exception for gifts or family members. Moreover, it does not contain a time limit for prosecution or differentiate between a felon convicted of a violent capital or first-degree crime, like murder. Persons guilty of lesser fourth-degree offenses, like theft or possession of illegal drugs. Law-abiding citizens, including those who have made just restitutions for their past wrongs, need their constitutional rights restored. The Second Amendment, there you go. Yeah, go ahead and clap. Yeah. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be. Shall not be infringed. Now, she did vote on a good one. No, state-sponsored abortion and sex mutilation. And this will be the last one. The care of human life, not its destruction, is the greatest responsibility of government. New Mexico ought to forbid all methods of abortion and prohibit the practice of sex mutilation. No person has the right to kill or harm a child using the pretext of reproductive health. How many of you have you heard that? Women's health. Listen, I'm for women's health. Okay? I'm for reproductive health. I'm for pro-choice. I choose life, and so do Americans. Therefore, each of the several states has a duty to defend the basic humanity of all its citizens, especially the preborn and the minors, those that don't have a voice. Maybe you have, in some point in your life, been a victim, and a crime has been committed against you, or was about to be committed against you, and someone stepped in and saved you from that. Or someone stepped in and said, I know this is gonna cause me harm, but I got something to protect. Folks, I've got great news. We can make America great again if we make America states again. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, CJ. Hey, before we go on to the next speaker, I want to remind everybody we have silent auction items here.